This week I'm going to be hanging the doors on the carport and finally filling in the windows to actually make the whole building secure and hopefully keep the birds out of the building. But before I can do any of that, I need to remove the old screws from these salvage doors so I can remove all of the old furniture and turn two of the doors into folding doors. And I'm going to be trying out this kit to remove the old headed bolts and screws. Hi, I'm Cameron. This is Stina. That's Suki, and that's Bramble. We moved 200 miles to the south of Scotland to take a chance on a life that we wanted to live. We're slowly building our dream, doing as much as we can ourselves, and repurposing where possible to save money and reduce waste. Welcome to Bramble Cottage. Right, we're back, and we're back to do the final bit of this carport makeover, and that is going to be basically to do these doors. Now, if you caught the last video, I was saying that the doors have got a little bit of a problem. So some of the bolts in them, or the screws, have completely headed, so I can't actually remove them. So I sent off for a tool to help me remove them. And this is that tool, and it's kind of straightforward really. What you've got here is you've got these bits, and they've got like a drill head on one end, and this threaded section on the other. The idea is that you drill a little pilot hole into the head of the bolt-headed screw. That creates enough space for this bit, which is counter-threaded. So when you try and unscrew it using your drill, it'll bite into the metal, and the more it bites, the more it grabs, the more it pulls. It's just gonna help us get through it. So we're going to have a go at that now and see how it does. Well, what I can say is it definitely did not work on that one. So, yeah. I'm going to have to try and get this out by some other forceful means. The pliers didn't work either. Finally, I have managed to remove that lock, and that was quite an adventure. The bolt would absolutely not come out. It broke off. And as you can see there, the bolt is kind of halfway through, so that just wasn't shifting. I ended up managing to get in and drill the bolt through just enough to be able to remove this. And even then, it was like, I need to hammer this to heck to get it out. So it's out now, which means I can remove what's left of the furniture there. Oh yeah, and just two more to go now. Here I decided to use my better metal drill bits to do the pilot hole because the others had gone blunt already. I think it's fair to say I got a little bit overexcited that it was actually working this time. It wasn't to be. Right, I've just got finished working on the second one, and it's the second one which I also had to drill through and hammer straight on out, so yeah, I don't have much hope for the third one, but you know, we'll try. Well, I'm still on the second one, and that was a fight every inch of the way. There wasn't a single piece of that wanted to come off. So yeah, on to the third one. I'm living in hope that this will be easier. Oh my goodness, it worked! It worked! That's exactly what it's meant to do. Now that the bolt's out, all I need to do is remove all of the rest of the furniture, and I'm hopeful it should all come off in one piece reasonably. Considering the difficulties I went through with the other two doors, this one was relatively painless. Because I need to build up a frame around these doors to hang the doors on, I thought it would be easier if all of the doors were attached together, so then I could put the frame in the right place relative to the doors. Kinda makes sense to me. Right, this is a bit of a jump forward, and the reason that I didn't do a lot of recording on this was because it was a bit of a fight, and health and safety might have not been happy with what went on. So the doors are now all attached to each other. Stina suggested putting up a bar there and attaching the doors then onto that, which makes it a lot easier to handle. So now the doors are attached to each other, and they're attached to that, and they're basically upright. So the one thing which still needs to be worked out is we need to lift the doors up a little bit further, but for now, because we've got it roughly centered, or as centered as we want it to be, I can start building the frame on the sides ready to receive the doors onto, and that's a very exciting step. This is going to be some pretty simple stud work to fit the doors in. All that really needs to happen is there needs to be the uprights to hold the outer doors in the right place, and everything else should fall into place. So by using the doors, I now know where the frame needs to be, and it should all fit pretty tightly. And yes, this is a lot of drilling. Now that the frames are in place, I'm just removing the screws from the bar that are holding the right hand door in place, so we can remove that and hang it completely. First door hung, moment of truth.
Anyway, the door should lift up a fraction if we need it. Okay.
The two doors that I'm now working on are going to be folding doors, so I'm going to put the hinges on the back so that they're held together as well, and then hang these two doors together as one, if any of that made any sense. So as you can see, we've done a fair bit off camera, and that's mainly because it's kind of difficult to know where to put the camera when you're doing these things. But this door is lovely and working quite freely now, which is excellent. Needs a little bit of work to make it a bit more secure, and I need to put the bolts in the corners there, but that's okay. But the big one, the big door, you can see it, we've got the hinges on the outside, and you'll have seen me putting the hinges on the inside, and yeah, we've been giving it some testing first. Here we go, it just kind of wants to be open, but it folds. This went as well as I could possibly have hoped. The doors are looking fantastic. Really pleased with the result. Still got a little bit of work to do on the outside, but we're on our way. Now I know that the doors are working properly, it's time to add those extra bolts for a little bit of extra security. progress is definitely happening. So I've put the bolts on now, but now I want to fit a little bar up here that's just going to hold the door, this particular door, sort of flush to there. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to place on the back, down here, I want to fit on the bolts that are going to go into the ground. Now these ones that we're going to use are over by here. There we go, found one. So as they say, proper preparation promotes peak performance, and I very rarely perform at my peak. But we've got two of these which were from the front gate, which we've removed because again that was another rotten lump of wood on our bit of landscape. So these are actually good and shouldn't take they shouldn't take anything to fit, like 2 minutes. Biggest problem is going to be putting the holes in the ground or making a dent in the ground where they're going to go. These bolts going into the ground are just going to make sure that the door doesn't wobble whilst it's in the closed position. It'll also help the door stay secure and locked. Now this is just a little side job that both Stina and I have been itching to do since we started this carport project. And that is to start re-landscaping the whole driveway. And this is the very first step toward that. This particular step is about removing the edging where the carport is. And then we can start levelling the earth around that carport and bringing it all down to one level. It seems like this edging was placed in first and then the tarmac was placed on top of it, which means it's kind of difficult to shift. Difficult but not impossible, I guess. So this is the start of the removal of that edging. Hopefully we'll see some more of this in the next few videos. Anyway, back to the carport. The next task is to add the shiplap to the outside. Just going to remove this plug for a few minutes so I can get behind it. And back to the shiplap. Finally, to put the electronics back in place. And that is the externals all shiplapped up. Still got some finishing touches to do on it, but basically this is the main building done. So the next thing that needs to be focused on is going to be the window, because we saw some interlopers making the way in, and those interlopers seem to have tried to make a nest. So we need to stop anybody getting in here. I have got these bits of Perspex which I'm going to try cut into the right size for the window frames. I managed to find an old tub of linseed oil putty in the house, which is super lucky. I didn't know we had it. It's great. And I happened to find these as well, which are basically window latches which were left behind by the previous owner. So we might just be able to fit those in, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like them yet, but they're a good little security feature. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next. Usually cutting Perspex is really very easy. You can just use a tool very similar to a glass cutter and just break the Perspex to where you want it to break. like so. I decided to leave the white plastic backing on these pieces of Perspex just so the birds could see that there's something there and don't try and fly straight through. So this is what I'm doing now, is just peeling it up at the corners to make sure that when I do come to take it off, it's not going to be a fight to get out from behind where it's pinned in against the frame. The putty was very stiff and old, but thankfully a little bit of working it in the hands got it up to a nice flexible consistency to be able to be applied. It's only a small tub of putty, so I'm going to be a little bit sparing with this, just to make sure I've got enough to do everything. Breaking off thin slivers of Perspex can be very challenging, so I used an extra little piece of wood so that I was evenly applying the pressure all the way along that edge before I tried to break it. I've put 6 of the panes in now, and I'm going to be working on the other 12, but rain says no. So yeah, we'll just have to see how we do with this. Time for a little update. A little bit windy now, so I'm sorry. I've got most of the windows done, so the only thing that's missing now is these top 4. The reason I'm stopping here for a minute is because I've now run out of putty for the windows. So what you can see is I've only done the bottom and the tops of the windows that I have done. This one's kind of just sort of recessed into a little nook on the side, so that'll hold itself in. And I'm going to have to just put these last 4 roughly in place and hope for the best. So one problem that I've been having is these sheets are not breaking very easily. The last one was a little bit chewy, and I don't know if you can see it down there, but it kind of broke one of the panes that I was working on. So I've taken to sawing them in half instead. So I measure it up and just saw them down, and I use the plane to take off any sort of raggedy edges. The quality of the Perspex varies quite dramatically, and the first sheet which I worked on worked very, very well. It just broke very cleanly. The last 2 sheets I worked on did not break cleanly at all, so I'm having to resort to using the hand saw, which is fine, it's just not as clean and easy as breaking it. Been a long, slow process of redeveloping the carport from the carport that we started with all the way through our dream phase to what it is now, but I think it's been a really worthwhile process and truly satisfying. So the next steps for the building is going to be to paint the outside, rework the electrics and reorganise the internal division. But for now I'm just happy to have a secure outbuilding which we can actually keep the birds out of. Oh yes, still need to fit a lock.